The runway lights had just come back on. Russian ground crews were still clearing debris from the last repair when Су-34 streaky jets rolled into position, engines screaming, heat shimmering out the tarmac. For Moscow, this was supposed to be a moment of recovery. The air base was back. The runway was usable. Air power was returning to the front. But Ukraine had been watching every step, every truck, every repair crew, every hour of progress. And as the first jet accelerated down the freshly repaired strip, Ukrainian drones dropped out of the night sky. The first explosion tore through the runway like a lightning streak. The second slammed directly into the Tahienge aircraft, turning a $40 million fighter into a viable within seconds. The entire airbase descended into chaos. Jets burned, crews scattered, and the runway Russia had spent 2 weeks repairing was erased in under 30 seconds. Ukraine unjust struck the runway. Эти хитрейс Russia's secret chance. Bельбек Air Base in occupied Crimea as unjust another military airfield. It was the beating heart of Russia's southern aerial campaign. From the single strip of concrete, Russian Су-30s, Су-34s, and Су-35s could reach into Ukrainian territory. Within minutes, it was the launch point for devastating glide bomb attacks, precision missile strikes, and constant aerial patrols over the Black Sea. For Moscow, Bельбек was the fist that kept Ukraine's southern defenses under relentless pressure. Without it, the entire southern front would go blind and slow. That's exactly why when Ukrainian drones first created the runway in late December, Russia reacted with absolute urgency. Satellite imagery captured the response within hours of emergency, repair crews loading in Lycans, concrete makers working non-stop, asphalt trucks arriving in convoys, mobile lighting units turning night into day, engineers working round the clock in rotating shifts. The Kremlin's orders were crystal clear. Get Bельбек operational again. No delays, no excuses, not with winter operations ramping up, not with Ukrainian air defenses growing stronger by the day. But there was something Russia's tremendous completely missed, something that would prove vital. The first trick was never meant to be the attack. It was the invitation. Ukraine had zero intention of keeping Bельбек closed permanently. They wanted Russia to repair it. They wanted aircraft returning to the fly line. They wanted full trucks parked in it, vulnerable rows. They wanted Russian pilots feeling confident again, feeling safe. Because destroying an empty runway is just damage. Destroying a runway while jets are active using it. That's humiliating. That's psychological warfare. That's a message Moscow can't ignore. So Ukraine did something brilliant. They waited. For nearly 10 days, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones circled in silence, far beyond Russian radar coverage. They entered the king. They were studying, watching the progress meter tick upward. Craters methodically filled with fresh concrete, asphalt smooth to perfect specifications, navigation lights reinstalled and tested, taxiways cleared of debris, every phase documented, every detail recorded. But the final phase was the most critical, aircraft repositioning. The moment Russian jets started returning to Bельбек, Ukrainian intelligence knew the trap was nearly ready to spring. The Russian-based commander made the predictable decision, resume limited operations. Start with test flights, run short sorties, build operational confidence gradually. IT was textbook military procedure, logical, cautious, reasonable. That single choice sealed the fate of the entire airfield. Because the exact moment those first 2 Су-34s were rolled onto the apron, Ukrainian streaky plans activated phase 2. This isn't going to be not a random harassment streaky. This isn't going to be symbolic. This was going to be a pre-centimeter execution designated to Mahimi the damage, Mahimi the shock, and sent an unmistakable message to every Russian airbase commander from Crimea to Moscow. At 2, 14 am, from a concealed rural launch city near Myklivy, 6 long-range Ukrainian attack drones lifted silently into the freezing night air. These Yeren cheap commercial quadcopters. These were purposeful deep streaky walls, low observable platforms with modified exhaust, radar dampening, coatings, and sophisticated terrain hugging fly profiles programmed down to the meter. Within seconds of launch, they dropped to under 100 feet altitude, disappearing completely into the radar blind zones along the coastline. For the next 3 hours, they flew in absolute silence. No radio emissions, no telemetry, just inertial guidance and satellite correction, weaving through valleys and flying reverts like mechanical ghosts. Russian coastal installations saw nothing. Air defense systems remained dormant. Only this was crossing the Black Sea at 400 kilometers per hour. At the same time, a second wave was being prepared at a separate location. Short-range FPV-3 drones, each one modified V-shaped charges specifically engineered to penetrate aircraft fuselage and ignite full tanks. This ain't meant for infrastructure. These were built to kill jets. Ukraine isn't just targeting concrete and asphalt. They were targeting Russian confidence, Russian morale, Russian willingness to ever feel safe at Bельбек again. BY-5 арташевена Бельбек base was fully operational and buzzing with activity. The first Су-34 had been cleared for engine testing. Turbines screaming as ground crews ran final checks. The second was already taking into launch position, pilot running through privileged procedures. Full trucks side out nearby, ready to top off tanks. Maintenance crews were standing down. They were complete. Radio chatter crackled with routine. Communications, weather updates, clearance confirmations, standard military procedure. To every Russian serviceman on the base, the worst was over. The Ukrainian threat had passed. The runway was back. Operations were resuming. Life was returning to normal. That sense of security lasted exactly 43 seconds. At 5:47 and 43 seconds, the first Ukrainian drone crossed the perimeter fence at 60 feet altitude, sleeping perfectly between overlapping radar sectors. No alarm sounded, no warning system triggered, just a dark shape moving too fast and too low to be identified. 10 the second drone followed, 10 the third, 10 the fourth. By the time Bельбек's point defense radar registered anything unusual, the lead drone struck with a crew precision. It didn't deploy on the surface like a conventional bomb. It set a delayed fuse penetrator overhead, punching through the freshly laid asphalt before detonating in the substrate layer beneath. The blast didn't just crack concrete, it lifted the entire center section of the runway. Like a sheet of paper being torn in half, massive concrete slabs shattered into fragments. Rebar snapped like dear white twigs. A cylinder crater painted exactly where a fully loaded Су-34 had been accelerating just seconds earlier, before the debris had even stopped falling. The second drone hit 30 meters ahead, obliterating the primary landing zone. Within 3 seconds, Bельбек's pristine runway transformed from operational perfection to a broken, foaming trench. All those weeks of repair work, all that concrete, all those engineers, erased in 3 seconds. But Ukraine hasn't finished. The runway destruction was just phase 1. Now came the kill shot test. As Russian ground crew stood frozen in shock, still processing what had just happened to their runway, 2 FPV drones screamed in at rooftop level, engines howling. Trading between parked vehicles and equipment with terrific precision, the first FPV locked onto the Su-34. The jet was still moving, still accelerating toward what had been the runway. The drone pilot made major adjustments for wind and speed. 10 immediate impacts. The shape charge pierced straight through the cockpit canopy, detonating inside the avionics bay. The result was instantaneous and catastrophic. The entire jet erupted in a massive fireball. Full tanks ignited in a roaring explosion that hurled debris across the opponent into adjacent structures. The second FPV went for the lead aircraft. Still on the disintegrating runway, IT struck the left engine in tacky at full velocity. Compressor blade shattered into thousands of spinning fragments. Full lines ruptured under the pressure. Flames burst from both sides of the aircraft as hydraulic fluid ignited. The jet skidded violently sideways, landing gear collapsing under the stress, sliding directly into the burning wreckage of the first aircraft. 2 frontline streaky fighters, each representing $40 million in Russian military investment, completely destroyed in seconds. Neither one ever left the ground. Neither one ever fired a shot. Neither one ever hit a chance. Dramatic music would follow doesn't a military response. It was a complete collapse of order. Pilots abandoned their aircraft and ran for cover. Ground crews dug behind vehicles, equipment, anything solid. Full trucks reversed blindly in panic, slamming into each other, into parked vehicles, into ground support equipment. 1 full truck caught fire, flame spreading instantly, 10 are not reignited, 10 a third. Ammunition carts began detonating in sympathetic explosions. The entire western aprambic may chain reaction of fire, smake, and secondary stairs. Russian defense units finally engaged, but it was poor chance. Anti-aircraft guns fired wildly into the smake-filled sky. Missiles launched to it or prepared target locks. Tracers caught random patterns through the darkness. One Panzer system, completely disoriented, fired a full burst directly into a hangar roof, triggering yet another fire. But the Ukrainian drones were already gone. Mission accomplished. Exfiltration complete. They planned for a hit on streaky window and executed in 10 seconds. Professional, precise, devastating. Ukraine didn't need to stick around. The damage was catastrophic complete. From a poly-military perspective, this isn't just another annoying streaky. This was a comprehensive capability elimination operation. Бельбек was offline again, yes, but the real damage went far deeper. Material losses. Су-34 streaky fighters completely destroyed. On maintenance hangar burned, 2 structural fair, multiple full reserves ignited, and lost millions in ground support equipment destroyed. Primary runway requiring complete reconstruction. Air operations suspended indefinitely. Tragic losses. Sortie generation capacity eliminated. Forward operating capability neutralized. Aircrew rail shattered. Pilot confidence destroyed. But the most devastating loss was psychological, because now every repair crew, every engineer, every base commander across occupied Crimea understood a terrific new reality. Fixing the runway doesn't make you safe. IT makes you a target. IT makes you predictable. And predictability in modern warfare is a death sentence. Bельбек was supposed to be back. The runway was supposed to be usable. The jets were supposed to fly. Pilots were supposed to return to combat operations. Moscow was supposed to demonstrate that Ukrainian strikes so and keep Russian air bases down. Instead, they burned. Instead, the runway was destroyed again. Instead, Russia learned a brutal lesson about modern warfare. Ukraine didn't rush. They didn't panic. They didn't waste ammunition on empty targets. They waited with infinite patience. They watched Russia invest everything into rebuilding. They let Moscow believe safety had returned, and when Russia felt secure again, when confidence returned, when operations resumed, that's when Ukraine struck. The second attack wasn't just about destroying infrastructure. It was about destroying hope, about making every Russian airman question whether any repair is worth the risk, about making every air base feel like a trap waiting to spring. Бельбек is operational again now. Russia will repair IT. They have no choice. But will pilots ever feel safe there again? Will ground crews work without looking at the sky? Will commanders sleep peacefully knowing Ukraine is watching, waiting, calculating the perfect moment? That's the genius of the strategy. The physical damage we perceive eventually, the psychological damage never dies.